to begin.
Hey, what is up, guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Social Climate Podcast. We got the one and only Gabriel Enamorado. What's up, man?
What's up, my dude? How are you?
I'm doing great, man. Thank you for making it out here. We were just briefly talking before the show. You know, I've been kind of known about State Gallery for quite a few years now. I want to say maybe in the last, me personally, maybe 3-4 years. And that's when I first came across the information. And since then, you know, I just see the work that you've been putting in around the city of Downey, as well as being a photographer and a creative arts advocate. Tell me a little bit about yourself, man.
Thank you for having me. First of all, I appreciate you just having me on your show. Excited to be here. Where do I begin? You know, there's so much.
For sure, want to get to know about your background. Like, what made you focus on? I know you've been doing photography and graphic design.
Yes.
You know, like, what was the initial idea behind that?
You know, ultimately, I've always been an artist. I've always been a creative. Since I was a kid, I don't have any other memory beyond just, you know, naturally kind of falling into my art, not necessarily playing sports or doing group activities or anything like that. I always kind of just resorted to my art as my safe space. As a kid, I drew a lot of Dragon Ball Z. That was kind of like the first thing that I really got in love with. You know, I had a black book just full of every character, and I was very organized and meticulous about it. Heading into middle school, that just kind of kept evolving. And I remember my first year in high school, I was introduced to graffiti. Graffiti, this was 2005 or so, was blowing up in LA, and I was just taken by it. You know, there was a ton of people at my high school who were you know, just into it and just fully in the scene, and I was just pulled completely by it. And graffiti was really kind of like a catalyst, I think, for my life and my career. I met a lot of artists through that, and I think most significantly, I got to know Crew West Gallery. And initially, I believe it was Alhambra or El Monte. I think it was Alhambra where they were at, and then they moved to downtown LA. Crew West Gallery, if you're not familiar, was LA's first graffiti art gallery. Ran by Man One. He's a very active artist still till this day, but he had his art gallery over in downtown. And I remember being in high school, and I would make any excuse to just get out there and be in that space. Man One, you know, he, for the most part, during the times that I would go, he was there occasionally, but you know, I'd be around his staff, and I would just, hey, can I sweep the floors? Can I just be here? Can I just help? It was the first
to be involved.
To be involved. You know, I had never been in a gallery before. I had never been in a space with white walls that were tall, and just the ampleness of it. It just, something about it spoke to me. Yeah. And I spent a lot of time in there, and I met a lot of really significant graffiti artists, because they were, you know, it was the only space showcasing graffiti artists. There was one point where Legend, the movie Legend, or I Am Legend, they were having like a special event there where they invited artists to paint on canvases, and there was like some awards given. Man One, because I was there all the time, was like, hey man, you want a canvas, and you know, do you want to participate? And I was like, sure. And you know, it was like all these like master painters and me
and me
as like a 16-year-old, you know, doing this little canvas. I still have photos of that.
16 years. Damn.
I was young. I was young. I was like 16, 17 years old. And you know, since middle school, just walking around with a camera always on me, my little black book. And so, yeah, you know, that's really awesome. where it started for me. You know, coming back to high school, I attended Warren in Downey High. I attended Warren in the city of Downey, and they would have an annual art exhibition in the cafeteria. Of course, I took every art class and photo class that I could, every industrial class that I could, woodworking and all of that. And at the end of the year, they would organize a student exhibition. And by I want to say my junior year, I got really involved with it. I started to just ask my teachers, like, can you guys let me out? I want to just curate and be involved with this, with these shows. It's really fun. I want to put the art up on the walls. And it definitely was another touch point for me where, you know, it was like a really proud moment. Like, wow, like I got out of class 1, 2, I was able to put up all these artworks and kind of design the layout of it, and was really proud of that. And I have a photo, I kid you not, I have a photo of a bunch of my pieces on these little fabric, you know, mobile walls, and a bunch of kids coming to see my work, because I was kind of like the artist of my high school. And, you know, I was just really involved. I although I never joined a club or anything like that in high school, I was always with ASB because they wanted me to paint some sign in the field or the stage or something. So just since then, just always heavily involved.
From the sounds of it, you fully delved into just the creative world, right? Like you said, you're just an arts advocate. So anything that encompasses that,
totally,
you've just been open to the experience.
Totally.
You know, and that's awesome, man, because in these communities, it's not something that it's necessarily like promoted. Like, hey, go to school, be an artist, you know, or whatever you want to do creative. It's more like, hey, you got to get your work. You got to do your work. You got to do this. So knowing that you went like basically against those odds and chose to pursue that, it's just, you know, it just shows the initiative and the passion that you had for creating. Yeah,
I mean, that was exactly it. And I got to give props to my mom because she definitely allowed for that. You know, she saw awesome. my passion for it. Never, as a kid, never questioned me or like, she always encouraged me to kind of keep doing it. And so that I think was really helpful. She always allowed me to express myself and to, obviously I was raised by my mom primarily. And so I think that was huge. You know, she definitely had a lot of impact on that. And she always talked about how she was an artist as a kid.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah. No, that's cool because I have a son, right? My son right now is 11 and he's an artist. He knows how to draw pretty good. I'm an artist, but not like, you know, professionally or anything. But knowing that he's doing it, it makes me want to push that skill set because I know the value of it now as an adult, you know, and the fact that your mom is one of those cases where they saw the value in what you wanted to do and, you know, and pursue it. They were there to enable you to pursue that instead of the contrary, which either way, people's situations varies, obviously, but at the end of the day, it's that drive that you have in yourself to go through it.
You know, and something we believe through Stay is like, you know, encourage kids to make art, but it doesn't mean that they have to become like full-time painters or, you know, that's not like the career. We believe that art is really just a tool to teach us and allow us to express ourselves. So, you know, we have a lot of kids that come through our programs and they make art, they love making art, but it's not necessarily what they're going to do for the rest of their life. Yeah. But it is a form of, you know, just like an exercise. It's like a practice that you just develop, even though you can pursue a totally different career. Expression is an
expression. Yeah, no, and that's a perfect way to put it, the expression, because there's times like I went to Michael's a few days ago with my partner. We're just looking around for stuff that she's going to decorate, and I saw a canvas and some what are they called, brushes? Yeah. And I don't know, there was something like I was like, I don't even know how to paint, but I had that itch, like to maybe I should just even if it's not a professional thing, you know, just get it out of the system. And you know, it's like those things. Even with exercise, sometimes your body's just so pent up with energy that it just needs you to, like, you know, exercise it and go out and get some, you know, life in you. Exactly. And once you get it, even if you don't pursue it, you still feel great. Like you felt like you took care of that. You know. Definitely follow that itch, man. Yeah. Definitely follow it. Those are the good itches. Yeah. I even myself, I haven't necessarily painted anything in quite a while actually, but I can totally relate to that feeling. And so I do have canvases that are just there, and I'm like. And I do go for it. You know, my partner and I, we've allowed ourselves that time. Like, let's just do it. Let's just get the paint out and just let's see what happens. Yeah, let's just see what happens, where it goes. And it's almost like going to the gym. You'll never regret it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's exactly. You'll never regret it. Yeah, you're gonna walk out with it regardless of what you did. You're just gonna feel. It's gonna feel good because you're creating. You know, there's nothing more, I think, fulfilling than creating, right? Like, people can think of creating in the terms of like reproducing, like having kids, right? Right. But you can also create like other stuff from the abyss, you know? Right. You know? I mean, it's the gift we've been given, man, as humans. You know, that is it right there. It is what we are here to do. Yeah. And I know that's one of the, you briefly mentioned right now, that's one of the goals at State Gallery, and that's located in Downey. Yeah. I told you just before the show as well that I've been knowing of State Gallery for a couple of years, but I was never, for whatever reason, inclined to go and visit, right? I was just like, oh, it's just a gallery. But after the event that I went to on Friday last week, I think it was a Local 5 show. Is that what it's? It's called the Local Group Show. The Local Group Number 5, yeah. Number 5. Yeah. I went because, you know, I saw the roster of the artists that were being displayed, and I think there was like 5-6 people that I noticed there, and I was like, you know what? I think it's time for me to make my way down to Stay. Yeah. Dude, I walk in there and just seeing the art, like the people who are being represented, the stories, like the trauma is like anything, you know, like just what encompasses the community struggle there, right? Or their lives and their own experiences. Right. I was taken aback, man. Like I just said that right now and I got a little goosebumps, you know, like just seeing dude, it was a beautiful thing that I saw. And honestly, that's when I was like, dude, why haven't I been here? And I felt guilty. I felt bad that I was not here before supporting, you know? But sometimes that's how life is, you know?
How it goes.
You can't live by things that you didn't do. You have to be like, oh shit, well, let me be open to this new experience, and now let me keep supporting, let me keep doing it, you know?
Totally. Well, we appreciate you being there. And I do want to state that was actually the closing reception. So it was the last chance to see the exhibition before it came down. The opening, you weren't even able to walk through that place.
Damn.
I mean, it's
nice.
Yeah, the openings for our group exhibitions are always just super, super full of families and young people. Incredible experience.
So tell me a little bit about the history of Stay. Like, how have you become involved in it?
Yeah, so, man, I just saw like an entire... So, you know, Stay began, I would say, unofficially in 2010. By 2000, you know, I graduated high school in 2007. I went to Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandising, or FIDM, as people may know, for about a year and a half. I studied digital media there. I went for a year. I dropped out. Program was cool. Wasn't really for me. Never went back to school after that. And basically, 2008, 2009, started freelancing full time. And I was doing, graphic design, photography. I was painting, people's names on their walls for income. I was doing all kinds of things. I had been doing photo booths at like warehouse parties in like South Central, just like doing all kinds of stuff, flyers. Anyway, I want to say that, let me see, 2007 or so. Actually, no, it was 2007. Apologies. 2007, I had organized an exhibition with my art and two other friends of mine, Mari Rindu and Yasser Abdo. And the three of us had organized this exhibition at a place called Epic Lounge, which is right around the corner from where the gallery is today. I had gotten some live performers who were local to come, and perform, and we had DJs. It was just like a little art show in a little warehouse using RGB lights to light up the art. That was kind of my first exhibition that I had organized outside of high school. Fast forward to 2010, I meet Valentin Flores, who is the person that I started the gallery with. Him and I both grew up in Downey. He went to Downey High. I went to Warren. He was about 6 or 7 years older than me, and happens to be that he had studied photography in college, and I was, like a street photographer, I suppose, at the time. And we just both had this energy that we were just like, let's do things. I remember the first day we met, we were like, dude, let's have a show with our photography. He's like, and I was like, yeah, let's do it. He's like, I may have access to the Downey Theater. If you're not familiar, the Downey Theater is a 700-seat theater off of Firestone Boulevard in Downey that, at the time wasn't used very much. The lobby of the theater is a 2-story lobby, has 2 staircases, goes around, and it was meant to be used as a gallery. As far as I know, it had never been used since its opening in like 1965. Fast forward, we somehow managed to have the theater allow us to use the lobby of it for free, no charge. Wow. Yeah. We organized this exhibition, and I want to say between November and February, which February 4, 2010, we had the opening reception. And when you walked into the theater, it was all my photography on this half, his photography on that half, and then the whole upstairs, it was like just split, basically. We called the show Ambivalence. It was the idea that, we were both very opposite. His work was very daytime, just bright, traveling around the world. Mine was like very dark, murky, based in LA. And so it was a really cool exhibition. That opening reception brought in about 800 people to the opening. It was such a big deal. This is 2010. It was such a big deal in the city that an art show was happening in Downey. It was just like this excitement just hit a lot of people. It was kind of the beginning of Facebook, the end of MySpace. I had been marketing on both, and we had a lot of people come out. We had like some people sponsor and whatnot, and that was really the beginning of Stay. We had gone by the name Downey Art Vibe at that time. It wasn't an official organization or anything. It was just, we had made a little logo, and that was the name of the thing that we did. And the city took notice of the event that we put together, and city staff started to reach out to us like, yo, that was really cool. How do we get more of that? it coincided with the city's plan to want to reawaken Downey Avenue. They had plans to kind of bring that street back up.
Yeah.
I mean, I grew up in Downey since 96. I had moved from the city of Bell. I don't have a single memory of going to Downey Avenue ever. I mean, it was just kind of a street that was like an afterthought at the time. And, it was a downtown in like the 50s, 60s and had its moment, and it kind of died off. And, early 2000s, a lot of cities started to kind of reinvest in their downtowns, which is how now you have like an Uptown Whittier, you have, like a downtown Long Beach, etc. So Downey was making its own effort for that. And one way that some city staff saw to do that was to invite the local arts group to come and, activate a space. So the city essentially, they started to bring us into city events, and they would contract us to do outdoor exhibitions at like city events. And that conversation, that relationship just kept evolving. And it got to the point that they invited us to a space that the city had leased, which is the gallery today. The city had leased the building and then invited us to come in and program and manage the space.
Dude.
Really just kind of mind-blowing, to think about, especially looking back. I still can't find like a similar example of that, of a city leasing space and then inviting,
Yeah, of course. Yeah, usually it comes with like its own thing, its own weight, But,
the agreement was the city would pay, the lease, and we would come in and do the programming and build out the space and do everything else. And so that's how we started. We got the keys given to the space. We had no funding. We had really anything beyond ourselves, our hands, and some ideas in our head. The city council voted on the funding. It got approved in May of 2012. And we just went straight to work. We got all of our friends together, started to build the space, started to like tear down walls and whatnot. And it took us about a year and a half to build out the gallery alone. We were doing like little events here and there, but for the most part, we were under construction for a year and a half.
Oh, damn. Yeah, just putting everything together. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure it looks professional. Yeah.
Yeah. And, it was an incredible like community effort, man. We had a lot of companies come in and donate like the floors. I don't know if you noticed how smooth and polished the concrete floor that was donated. The loft that you see, the bar, that was all donated by local philanthropists, donors, community members, just like donating time, labor, and money to build that space. That speaks volumes, because that shows that there was a need for this. Absolutely. I mean, there always will be. You know? That's, of course, I'm a little biased when it comes to that, but that's how it happened. And we. From 2014 and on, I mean, we just have done so much. I mean, we've evolved and changed. The organization has gone through a lot of changes. We've done a ton of partnerships with the local school district. We've done hundreds of exhibitions. We've had Shepard Ferry. He's shown his work in there once or twice. I've had some,
at the gallery.
At the gallery, we've had some pretty big names throughout the years. Have organized incredible shows. And this is a time when there was like literally no spaces in the region.
Of course. Yeah, I can't really think. I mean, I know there was like SELA, there was self-help graphics.
Yeah,
similar, and I know that's kind of similar to what you guys are doing, providing workshops.
And you know what? I kid you not, I barely learned about self-help 3 or 4 years ago.
Crazy!
I had no idea. I mean, I think growing up in Downey, a lot of us, I'd say the majority of Latinos in Downey really come from SELA. We all come from Bell, Southgate, Commerce, Bell Gardens. We all just moved there. But being in Downey, you're kind of in a bubble too, and kind of closed off to a lot of what's outside. And so that was kind of our experience, and we were just building this place based on the need we saw within our community and our direct kind of surroundings. Yeah,
and I love it when that happens, because there's somebody out there like you guys who we're looking and we're like, you know what, we need some representation in this, I was reading an article that I might be incorrect, but I think the overall U.S. population of Latinas in the U.S. is like 20%, but only like 2.8% is represented in the arts. And I was like, what?
Yeah,
like that's crazy. And in a lot of the things is in these neighborhoods, we're underfunded for the most part. In a specific time frame in my high school, I'm from class of 08.
Yeah.
In my high school years or middle school years, there was like these cuts to programming that, for the arts and music and all this stuff. but yet somehow the creatives found a way to prevail.
Totally.
You know? We got people in our audience who are still creating and found a way outside of the obstacles that we had in place.
Absolutely. Yeah,
man. So with Stay, I know some of the stuff that you guys do is workshops for the families, for the public. I know there's like some sort of like a relationship with the schools where you guys get students to present their work too, right?
Yeah. So, just kind of to finish off that first chapter of Stay, even though we were doing a ton of work in the community, the challenging and the part that we kind of never figured out at that time was, how do we make this sustainable, to where you can support people's lives? Yeah. And we never got to that point of being able to have salaries or a paycheck for that matter. I mean, there was a point, but it wasn't technically through the gallery. We actually created an independent design studio. We called it Stay Studio at the time. It was a totally separate company from the nonprofit. And we started to essentially offer our services in graphic design, of my services in graphic design and photography. Being in Downey, one thing that was really recognized was our marketing design for all of our programs. Yeah. The city of Downey Unified School District, the local newspaper, the Downey Patriot, all of those organizations came to us to rebrand them. And so you look at all of those logos from those organizations, and I've had the opportunity to design all of those logos, and so it's amazing to just be in that city and just see my work everywhere I go. Yeah,
I recently found out that you did the work on the logos for Downey and a couple of other stuff that you sent out right now, and I was like, dude, that's crazy. I remember when this rebranding happened. This was in the last
2014.
2014, yeah. I remember the old logo, and next thing you know, you start seeing the orange deal.
Yes.
Like, oh shit, Downey's upgrading.
Yeah. Amazing experience, to be able to work with institutions. I was 24, 25 years old at that time. I had a really good support team, but just incredible experience. However, my time was split between, managing these massive contracts and then still having to program the gallery. And, it got to a point in 2016 that it was just too much on the plate. And I wanted out for some reason. I wanted to move on. I wanted something new. And I actually left the organization. I left Stay completely. And, at that point, we also had teams, we had staff under us that were kind of managing the programs through the gallery and managing all the design contracts we had through the studio. But I left. At that point, had been living I had moved to Long Beach in 2015. And in 2016, when I left Stay, I just decided I want to be fully independent. I want to run my own studio. Yeah. I don't know how I'm going to make it. I don't know how I'm going to pay my bills.
Design studio?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I just went for it. I mean, I was already, I had an apartment in downtown. I had, all my things, but no plan necessarily for how I was going to pay for my for my livelihood.
You wanted it. Yeah.
I just knew I wanted it, and this kind of itch to just be independent and do my own thing. Yeah. Somehow I managed to do it. Over a span of 3-4 years, I built Estevan Studio, which is my private studio, essentially doing the same work, right? I do photography, graphic design, web development, and I've worked in tons of industries. With my photo work, I've done a lot of wedding photography, portraits. Today I do a lot of political campaigns with my photo work. Through my graphic design, I've worked on a lot of restaurants. I've worked in healthcare. I've worked in a ton of different industries. Today I work with a lot of nonprofits and advocacy groups doing stuff for SEIU and groups like that. And so it's really inspiring and honestly such a incredible way to learn about different industries. I get all of the information and all of their language, and I learn about so many things that they do through just the fact that I'm doing design for these institutions.
I mean, it sounds like they have the right person at Stay right now, the person with the knowledge.
Yeah, it's just been a pretty unique experience. And then in 2019, I had started to inquire about the gallery, kind of what's going on there. What had happened was that I met my partner, Juliana. Her and I started dating in 2017 in Long Beach. And in meeting her, I started to tell her my life story naturally. I had put Stay so far behind in my mind that I just had no reason to talk about it until I met her.
Yeah.
Started to share my story about, this work that I had done through this space. And in those conversations was like, I wonder what's going on with Stay. And, I go on the Instagram and there's not much activity going on. I started to inquire with the board, like, hey, how can I help? How can I get involved? I know the most recent agreement is going to end in 2020. How can I help?
Mm-hmm.
The chairman of the board finds out that I reached out, and he was also my client at the time. He owns a few restaurants throughout the area, and he's like, Gabe, come meet me at my restaurant. I want to talk to you about Stay for a little bit. And I go, and within 20 minutes he's like, do you want to come back as executive director? And it was just like such a shock. Like, what? Like, there's no way I would ever come back. No. Are you kidding me? But of course, I spoke to my partner Julianne at the time, and my mom, and they were both just super supportive, and what do you have to lose? And so February 2019 came back to Stay as ED. I brought Juliana with me. I told her, if I'm doing this, you're doing it with me. She was she had her own job at the time, and we just took on the gallery and essentially just completely from scratch everything.
The whole idea, and even the space. We gutted the space, cleaned out the space over a month, and started to reestablish like the website, the emails, getting answering things that have been left unanswered, and just cleaning house. In 2019, we had done a lot of exhibitions for students. We brought all of it back. We had an exhibition for Eduardo Viramontes. If you're familiar with, he's an incredible artist from Santa Fe Springs who was the lead graphic designer for the Hundreds. Amazing artist, good friend of mine, and it was kind of like the culminating exhibition of 2019. We had his solo show. And I remember like in March or April of that year, I called him. I'm like, Eddie, we're having your solo show, man. Like, we have to do it. And he was like, yeah, I'm down. And so that's how we planned it. So that's how, we came back in 2019. So that's probably why you became familiar with Stay. With Stay, yeah, exactly.
Because we just kind of, rebranded it and brought it back to life, essentially.
Yeah, that definitely meets that time frame when they started getting the attention.
Yeah.
Now, like, what do you think has been the hardest obstacle in I mean, because you got to drive people to come, right? I mean, you got to build that connection.
Yeah, I would say the audience has always been there. The audience has never been our challenge. It's been more just like finding out how to make the thing sustainable.
Yeah.
Coming into 2020, we're excited. We're like, we have a plan. We have this new approach with the city. At this point, the city had still been funding the lease. There was some feelings about that not wanting to be the case. And we come in with some plans like, hey, what if the city stops funding the lease and we instead offer our programs? We can guarantee 4, 5, 6 exhibitions a year, classes that are affordable for families. And we just begin those conversations in 2020, and of course the pandemic hits, so all of that's put on pause. The city did fortunately extend our funding through 2023 for the space, although partially. And so we had to, start applying for grants and doing, virtual programming. And, we just kind of made do with what we had. And, the space being closed for over 16 months.
Damn, 16 months closed.
16 months. And that was, there was a point where we could have reopened, but we were just so financially it's like, I can't even drive there. It costs too much. And so, we went through that point. And just somehow got through it, man. I mean, I think the grants and the community support really pulled us through. 2022, we get reached out to by a local organization called Downey Foundation for Educational Opportunities, DFEO. They manage all of the before and after school programs at Downey Unified, and asked us to become the visual arts partner. And so essentially managing teachers who would specifically do visual arts programming, because obviously that's our expertise. We became a partner coming into the 2022 school year, and within a month and a half hired 9-10 employees that we brought on. I had never hired an employee before, but we
basically to cover the workshops and stuff, right?
Yeah, well, to cover the classes at the school sites, and we just had to learn and adapt within a month. And thankfully, you know, we live in a time where we have technology and services that allow you to do a lot with very little. And we onboarded our staff. We put a call for employees, and we brought on part-time after-school teachers. And till this day, we currently employ 10 after-school arts teachers who are all primarily from SELA. You know, they're all artists, they're all working artists who have studied art, who want to become educators, and we employ them through that program. Today, now we're beginning classes and workshops at the gallery with that staff, and so that's kind of what we are starting in our new project.
Dude, no, I love the progress. You know, it's just one of those stories that you hear and you're like, damn, this place went through a struggle.
Yeah.
You know? It's easy to see things and you're like, okay, it's here, you know. But
No, I mean, it's a pretty space, so it looks like it's doing fine, but I mean, definitely a lot of sacrifice in the background.
That's the crazy part, because I mean, we see the value, but when it comes down to like the aspect of the space and all this stuff, then it becomes a little more like the legal issues and how you're going to fund it and stuff. I mean, the idea is still there, like just to bring value in terms of art and, you know, change to people's perspectives of things. But you start seeing that it gets tied down to, again, like these political stuff, and it becomes a little harder to just provide that message without having to struggle, you know?
Yeah.
And that becomes a whole different battle.
Yeah.
But again, from those battles, people who are through it are going to keep fighting through that. They're going to prevail. And like we mentioned earlier with the creatives, no matter what those obstacles were, like we still found ways to continue these ideas.
Right.
Knock on wood, that stays for a lot longer, you know?
Sure.
But I'm sure that if for whatever reason that wasn't the case, your idea will still continue in one form or another, right?
Yeah. And you know, and that's the goal. That's the goal. I think even though we've gone through a lot these past 3-4 years, it feels like we're just getting started. It's amazing. We have an incredible team of educators, on our side, and just a lot of projects and things that we're working on all at once. So this year is going to be really interesting. You know, we are just launching these classes and workshops for youth, teens, and kids and adults, and you know, just really excited to kind of shift how the gallery operates. Although we will probably still be doing exhibitions. Classes are going to be the primary focus going forward. You know, exhibitions in the region that we live in, not necessarily an art buying base. Even for Stay, that's never quite been the focus because of that. There's not necessarily a market for art buying. And so, you know, ultimately you have to contribute to creating those communities that are, you know, supportive of the arts and that believe in the power of the arts. And we believe it starts with the youth, and offering, you know, classes that are affordable, that introduce kids to these concepts we believe where that's where our focus is. Yeah.
That's a perfect focus because, you know, again, just going back to my experiences growing up here in SELA, like I didn't have inspirations. I can say, like, I can look at a wall and be like, oh, cool. You know, my walls would say XV3 or Clara Street or something, you know, like never art. Yeah. So it was hard for me to get into that. And, you know, graffiti at some point, I was never into the graffiti part, but my friends were, and I'll be around them when they were doing it just because I sucked, you know? Not that I didn't try, guys, you know, but I didn't have the skill set for it. Mine was more on paper. Yeah. But, you know, you didn't have the influences, the inspirations. And then when you finally did feel inspired, you felt like I felt like I was too old. Like, where was this when I was like 15? Now I'm like 27 or whatever it was. And I'm barely finding these inspirations in these areas around me. But that's just a testament of the progress that has been done, because it wasn't available to me back then, but it's starting to become available now. Right. Which means that people, at least growing up in my area, have taken the initiative to start providing these spaces. Totally. In Bell, we have the SELA Art Center, I think, right now.
Shout out Tetris.
Yes. Shout out Tetris. So, you know, we have that going on. They're planning on the SELA Cultural Center by the Southgate area on the riverbed. That's like huge. Yes. Like huge in here in this area. Yes. You know, it's just going to amplify those voices that you guys are, you know, trying to promote as well. Absolutely. Trying to bring up in a bigger sense. And it brings them into, I think they're going to have like a theater, like performance art theater. Hopefully everything turns out fine, you know, because it's something, we need that.
Agreed. 100% agree. And, you know, in addition to that too, on a state level, we have, and it's not very known, but Prop 28, it's called Prop 28. Prop 28 essentially guarantees arts programming at schools again.
Oh, what?
And that's so that's huge. That's something that just got passed, I believe last year, and it's now happening.
Yeah.
And
nice.
Yeah, so we're that's also another thing. Art is coming back to schools, and so you have people really pushing on the arts on every level here in the state. So it's just incredible and just so inspiring to see how SELA's activating, man. It's just I love
how you
love to see it.
Yeah, I love how you say that, activating, because that's really what it is. Like, it's like the switch got flipped. I may be biased because I'm coming out of SELA, but it just feels like there's been a movement that's been building up. Like I was at the SELA Arts Fest on the riverbed last year. I had a podcast, doing a live podcast.
Oh, cool.
Recording people. And again, that was one of my first times in Cudahy that I had the chance to get a taste of the power of the community around us. And it was beautiful, man. It was beautiful to see. And again, it's the same feeling that I get when I walked into State Gallery that evening, and I was like, dude, where have I been this whole time? And so, I hope other people who haven't been there get like the curiosity to check it out and just to feel themselves be influenced by the culture around us.
Appreciate that. Yeah. Our space is always open to anyone. We seriously focus on making it as inviting and as welcoming as possible. We acknowledge that there are generations of our people who have never experienced the arts. Yeah. And so, what you walked into, seeing the descriptions from the artists, that is like pinpoint exactly how we try to make it accessible. It's like there's people who have never, and they kind of question how do I even look at art? How do I experience art? And just that little description coming straight from the artist kind of brings more context, makes it a little more accessible, and allows people to really immerse themselves in the stories. That is the local group show. That is exactly what we try to make it about. It's about accessibility. That show, it is our 5th one since 2019. What we do is an open call to artists. And, every year those submissions have been growing and growing. This last one that we just had, we had over 170 submissions, all from SELA and, beyond. We do prioritize artists from SELA for that exhibition, but we don't exclude either from LA County. And, this was our biggest show to date, and we had 68 artists in that exhibition that you witnessed. The opening reception was really cool. It was the kind of the biggest, the largest exhibition opening we had organized. We, in addition to the opening in the gallery, we had organized a vendor market along the sidewalk
outside of the building.
And it kind of spread into the alley that was next door. We had a food vendor and lighting and all that. Really nice.
For the opening reception?
This was for the opening. It was in October. Yeah. It was amazing, man. I mean, a lot of work to put together, but just, an incredible experience overall. So, we look forward to continue to do those exhibitions.
Hey, it's cool, man. Out of the cities in SELA, the ones that I feel are more art leaning, as I've seen, is Downey. And I think that's really cool. I don't know what's lacking in other cities. I'm dumb in terms of figuring out why that is, but man, I hope they take notes. They take notes. Hey, you're hearing this, man. We need more. I know we've had more murals, especially from CJ, and there's Tetris has been doing some walls in Bao and stuff. But we need more of this thing. It's beautiful to be able to see a mural or a painting and just identify with what's going on, with the message that they're trying to provide. Tetris said this perfectly in the episode that we had. Our communities are full of just colors like gray, brown, these boring corporate colors in a sense, and there's no life to them. Right. And when we don't see that, it's easy for us to just be depressed in a way, we don't have this connection to anything going around us. But if we're able to connect through something visual and give ourselves the ability to interpret that message to our narrative, in a sense, exactly, that gives us power. It lets us take that power back.
Exactly.
Yeah, man, it's powerful. It's some powerful stuff, man.
It is, and I want to give props to the cities in SELA, even though they're we're all at different phases, right? Yeah. For cities, we're all at different phases in where we are in the process. Southgate is making strides. They have a city funded gallery and museum, the Southgate Museum and Gallery, I believe that's what it's called. That's
right, they do. Yeah,
they've
been promoting that a lot more in the last couple of years.
And it's a fully city funded space, and so and they're also getting the SELA Cultural Center, which, I mean, Southgate, to me, when I look at SELA as a whole, I see Southgate as they are going to be positioned to be the leader in the arts. Downey, Yeah, we've had spaces. Downey also had the first contemporary art museum in what's said to be all of Southern California. The city used to have what's called the Downey Museum of Art, located at Furman Park.
That closed.
Closed in 2009. I witnessed the closing of that. I fortunately had some opportunities to show my work there in high school. I got to paint a little mural in there when I was a kid as well. Did some chalk events with some elementary students, but that closed, and lack of city funding, even though it's a city funded space. Really interesting history, obviously. That could probably be a podcast in and of itself, but just interesting to learn and to learn about SELA and kind of why things are the way they are. And I think primarily when you look at history, SELA has been a pretty what's the term, like very working class industrial cities over history, over time. Downey in particular had the aerospace industry that was holding it up, and when that was in Downey, I mean, you had engineers living there, you had a lot of like scientists, and it, of course, the arts kind of matched up with that. You had the Downey Civic Light Opera, the Downey Symphony, the Downey Museum of Art. You had a lot of historical organizations that when that aerospace industry left the city, so did those organizations. The community couldn't sustain it. And so Stay is really like picking up the pieces of that. And, there's that energy and that want for the arts is always there. And so that's kind of just how Stay occurred, how Stay happened.
It's crazy how a lot of these spaces, after you hear their stories, it just sounds like, it's very fragile. It's like a very fragile.
That's a seriously great way to put it, because it is very fragile. Art ultimately, unless it's commercial, which it becomes inaccessible, it needs to be publicly funded to some degree. In order to be accessible, and cities need to carry that as a value in how they operate. That is what we believe. Art shouldn't just be viewed as a commercial, product that you sell and make money from. It should also be viewed from the mental health perspective.
Exactly.
And what it does for people, and if cities value that, they fund it.
Yeah, I mean, you would see also too that once you start funding these things and start seeing like how people are, the reception of the people in the communities, you start seeing how much better, in the sense, life can get. Like you start seeing people start focusing on the creating aspect rather than just rebelling. I'm against the system. It's like, no, okay, well, you can still be against the system, but now you can create and express yourself. Right. So that's I don't know. That seems like an easy solution.
Right. And this reminds me of actually why we named the gallery Stay Gallery. At the time, my experience, I could say for a lot of the people that I grew up with no longer live in the city. I don't even live in the city. My family's still in the city. But our experience was of people leaving. And so our idea was the arts, culture, creativity, all of that causes people to stay, to stay local, just like the hat.
Yeah, exactly.
And that was the initial idea. And that we believe that's what the arts do. It does encourage, people to stay local. It gives people a reason to be proud of the communities that they come from.
Exactly.
Because you have a space or, an organization that's like advocating and putting the history, on display. It's putting the culture on display. It's creating spaces for the community to come together and, ultimately creating pride in the cities that you're from.
Exactly. And then that pride is important because, I've been in that problem before, where I wasn't proud of where I came from. Totally. People would be like, I'll even change the city. Hey, where are you from? Oh, I'm from Downey. But no, I live in Cudahy, But people know Downey. That's like the city that everybody knows. But I'll be like, nah, I'm Downey. Because I was ashamed to be like, yeah, I'm from Cudahy.
That's so funny because that was my experience growing up in Downey. Yeah. There was like a general sense of shame being from Downey.
Oh, for real?
Totally. Yeah. For people from Downey, like, at least in our generation, there's definitely like this sense of shame. And I think especially for Latinos growing up in Downey, there's like, there is like this difference, right, in how Downey is perceived, and it can feel a little embarrassing because sometimes you don't necessarily align with all of that. And it's interesting. Like you mentioned that Downey was from SELA. According to some of the maps I see out there, it doesn't seem like that's the case, and it's something that I'm like, hey, we're right here too.
Because I mean it's like kind of border, right? It's like a border.
Yeah, it is, and technically technically it is Southeast LA. But there's some folks that don't believe that's the case.
Yeah, no, and that, again, I can see it. You hear that somebody's from Bell or Cudahy, or like, oh, those are some dangerous cities. We had an unfortunate event happen a few weeks ago where they're like within the same radius of Bell, Maywood, and HP and Cudahy, like 4 people got shot.
Yeah.
Like that's it hasn't happened as much. I've been in Cudahy since '98. I've seen the changes in the demographics and the gangs and all this stuff, the gang activity. Now you can walk outside with your dogs and stuff, so it's, air quotes safer. But then you hear something like this happen and you're like, damn, we're kind of back at square one.
That happens anywhere, man.
Yeah.
I mean, Downey just had a shooting recently, like a block away from the gallery, and it's, I just don't think it's reflective of the cities themselves. But
exactly.
But
but to an outsider, they're like, oh yeah, we're not gonna go out there, and that's when it's like, no,
it's bad PR.
And so that's why it's up to us to be able to create the culture around this, create our own narratives, and then again become prideful of where we're coming from.
Exactly.
Nowadays, I've been seeing like this progress in SELA. I'll be like, yeah, I'm from Cudahy, I'm from Southeast LA.
That's right.
Now I carry myself with a different type of weight, but it only came from, first of all, me rejecting it, and then embracing it and saying, you know what, this is where I come from.
Right.
Like, there's no reason why I should be ashamed or why I shouldn't be like open to learning about where it is. Right. This space is.
And it's because you see artists, you see culture, you see things happening with that name stamped on it. Right. I mean, it's incredible, man, how arts and culture has, through history, throughout even our ancestors. Yeah. The arts have always been how we communicate.
Yes.
It's what we look to when we look at ancient civilizations. It's their art. it's amazing.
Yeah, there was like four pieces of art that I vividly remember at State Gallery from that event. There was one that was describing like a Nahua wedding. Yeah, beautiful portrayal of that, of just what he was going for, and the caption was just like fucking cherry on the top. There was the one from Ernesto, Evil Illustrations or something. He has like what was it painting about? A frutero.
Yes.
And just how we're saying like how we connect, how our connections to our past are so thin, but somehow we're having like this fucking difficult time breaking through to the connection. Who else was it? Alejandro Vicencio. There was like a picture that he drew of the church where I got fucking my first communion.
I saw your post.
I'm walking up and I'm just like, that church looks familiar.
Yeah.
That church, for context, is no longer there. It got replaced by this mega church now. Yeah. But I'm still like, damn, what the hell? I would never imagine like this thing meant something to someone else.
Right.
And I was like, I love this place.
That's awesome.
Cool, man. It was a cool.
I'm glad you enjoyed that. And we are gonna have some classes, so I hope to see you at some.
Yeah. Hey, no, I'm for sure. And the goal here is too just to be able to bring people's attention to places like this. Again, it's like when we don't have a space, we're gonna find means of creating ways of expressing ourselves.
Exactly.
And that means that we also have to be open to supporting people we don't know sometimes.
Exactly.
And like that's recently, I think, with me, like I've been trying to be more proactive and just being there, showing support in these things. Good. Even if I don't know anybody, like there's a message that's being conveyed to a greater whole, and I want to be part of that. Like I want to be involved, or at least get people curious enough to be like, let me learn more about this stuff.
That's good. That is good. And seriously, kudos to you for this podcast. You've done seriously an amazing job. I mean, thanks, everything man. From your visuals to how you organize everything. I mean, seriously, good job.
Thank you, man.
We're rooting for you.
I do want to just get just your perception of what you think State will need to continue getting that support. Like, what do you think from your personal experience or perspective?
Well, as we come into this year, like I mentioned a little while ago, we are pivoting from focusing primarily on exhibitions to a more arts education focus. We are introducing classes and workshops at the gallery that will be regularly happening for kids, teens, and adults. It's a really exciting endeavor for us. We've had about a year and a half now to work with our staff through the after school programs that we run on site at elementary. We're at 17 schools total currently.
What, for reals?
Yeah, we're at 17 schools, all of the elementaries in Downey, which is 13, and then 4 middle schools. And that program is only growing. But now with that experience that we're bringing, you know, in arts education, we're now, again, just bringing that into the gallery, making it accessible to anyone and everyone. You know, and hopefully we're going to try to roll out some scholarships, some financial aid in the near future. We are working on all of that. And because the gallery is now primarily an education space, the exhibitions, you know, they're not going to stop. And there's new spaces and new places that we will be popping up at, whether temporary or additional, we're not quite sure, but there are some plans in the works right now. And so we're super, super excited for this year. And I just hope that people enjoy our offerings and that we can keep making it more accessible, more low cost, and just try to inspire as many minds as possible.
Yeah, that's the keyword right there. Inspire.
Inspire creativity.
Inspire creativity, you know, and just that curiosity, you know. Before we end this, the last episode, and I've mentioned this before, I don't know if you know who Chincha Barrinches is, like the ska band.
I'm not familiar.
Okay.
Oh, ska.
Yeah, they're from Southgate.
Okay.
So they've been playing for like fucking 20 years at this point.
Yeah.
But I went to one of their shows recently, and they brought up the band from, or La Banda, what the fuck, what am I saying here? The marching band from HB High.
Oh, amazing.
They brought them onto stage in the House of Blues. And
amazing.
To me, the message I got there from all that was just the ability to inspire. Like, you're inspiring people for their creative, you know, abilities.
Yeah.
They're musically inclined, so they're still inspiring that spark in people, that imagination, that curiosity. And we need more of that.
Totally.
You know, we need more people like that. We need more opportunities to give to the youth so they can come up, you know? Because I wish I had those opportunities.
Totally.
You know?
Totally.
But if I'm able to manage what I have now with what I got, you know, imagine the possibilities you have if you have these resources available to you.
Exactly.
So,
and you know, that's the position we want to find ourselves in when it comes to state arts, as the nonprofit. We want to be able to provide those resources, and we're getting there.
Hell yeah.
Thank you,
Gabriel. Seriously. Thank you for making the time, and for sure this is not going to be the last conversation we have. We'll keep in touch. And do you have any scheduled events coming up or anything that you want to?
So events, not really. If you go on our it's the classes and workshops that is like our primary focus. And so that's what we're doing. We're enrolling right now for the spring season, and look forward to see you there.
Sweet, man. And then for people to find out more information on that, is Instagram the best way, or
Instagram, our website, staygallery.org. We have our newsletter. We send out one email a month. So
hell yeah.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, thank you so much for taking the time, and we'll catch you next time.
Thank you.
Peace out, everybody. Peace.
restless heart.